press conference was expected to be just another routine media session. After all, Alex Ila had already made history by becoming the first Filipino player ever to win a Wimbledon main draw match as a seeded competitor. Reporters prepared their standard questions, cameras were rolling, and everyone assumed it would be another celebration of her remarkable achievement. But within seconds, everything changed. One honest statement from the 21-year-old completely transformed the atmosphere inside the room. Journalists froze, conversations stopped instantly. The Wimbledon tournament director's expression changed from calm to furious. Without saying another word, he slammed his folder onto the table, stood up, and stormed out in front of everyone. Silence filled the room. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. What could Alex Ila possibly have said to provoke such a dramatic reaction from one of the most powerful figures in world tennis? The surprising part was that she wasn't criticizing anyone. She wasn't demanding special treatment. She wasn't angry or emotional. She was simply telling the truth, a truth that many people inside the tennis establishment had refused to acknowledge. She spoke about the incredible wave of Filipino support that had taken over Wimbledon. Tens of thousands of fans had traveled across the world to witness history. She spoke about a sport that still underestimated the growing influence of Filipino tennis fans. And in doing so, she touched a nerve that nobody expected. Whether she realized it or not, Alex Ila had just started a conversation that could change Wimbledon forever. But to understand why those words carried so much weight, we have to go back 1 week earlier. On June 22, 2026, the latest WTA rankings were released, and they completely changed the course of Alex Ila's career. After an unforgettable grass court season, the young Filipina climbed from world number 35 to world number 30. It was already the highest ranking of her career, but fate had one more surprise waiting. When world number 9 Victoria Mboko withdrew from Wimbledon because of a knee injury, every player below her moved up one position in the draw. That single withdrawal elevated Alex Ila to the number 29 seed. For the first time in history, a Filipino player had officially become a seeded competitor in the singles draw of a Grand Slam tournament. It wasn't just another ranking milestone. It was a moment that generations of Filipino tennis fans had dreamed about but never thought they would witness. Across the Philippines, celebrations erupted almost instantly. Television stations interrupted their regular programming. Sports websites rushed to publish breaking news. Social media exploded with congratulatory messages, while thousands of fans proudly shared the historic achievement across every platform. Even people who had never followed tennis suddenly found themselves learning the rules of the game simply because they wanted to support one of their own. Alex Ila had become more than just a tennis player. She had become a national symbol. Only one other Filipino in the Open era, doubles specialist Treat Huey, had ever earned a Grand Slam seeding. Now Alex had become the first to accomplish the feat in singles. Nothing about this success had been handed to her. She earned every ranking point through months of relentless hard work, determination, and fearless performances against some of the biggest names in women's tennis. Her remarkable rise began at the WTA 125 Birmingham Open. There, Alex captured the first grass court title of her professional career after battling back from one set down against her doubles partner, Nikola Bartenkova. The comeback victory proved she could thrive on one of tennis' most difficult surfaces. Then came Berlin. Almost nobody expected the young wildcard to make an impact in such a loaded tournament. But Alex had other plans. She defeated Queen's Club champion Donna Vekic before producing one of the biggest upsets of the entire season by eliminating 2022 Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina. For many players, that victory alone would have been the highlight of the year. Alex wasn't finished. She followed it by defeating another top 10 player, Elena Svitolina, in straight sets to reach the semifinals of a WTA 500 event. Suddenly, the tennis world could no longer ignore what was happening. Alex Ila wasn't simply enjoying a lucky run. She had officially arrived as one of the sport's fastest rising stars. The victory meant far more than simply advancing to the next round. It erased the painful memories of that heartbreaking defeat in Cary, North Carolina. It settled unfinished business with Renata Zarazua. More importantly, it proved beyond any doubt that Alex Ila belonged among the world's elite on tennis' grandest stage. Moments after the match, Emotions finally caught up with her. "I'm just so grateful," Alex said, her voice shaking with emotion, "to everyone who came here to support me. To my coaches, my family, and everyone back home in the Philippines, this victory belongs to all of you." Those words struck a chord throughout the stadium. Thousands of Filipino supporters were wiping away tears. Many had crossed oceans, spending months planning and saving for this single day. They believed history was possible, and now they had witnessed it with their own eyes. But this victory wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Her reward for defeating Zarazua was a blockbuster second-round clash against either Maya Joint or one of the greatest athletes tennis has ever seen, 23-time Grand Slam champion Serena Williams, who had stunned the tennis world by coming out of retirement after receiving a Wimbledon wildcard. Neither matchup would be easy. Maya Joint still carried memories of denying Alex her first WTA title at the 2025 Eastbourne final. Serena Williams, meanwhile, represented one of the most intimidating names in sports history. Yet something had changed. Alex was no longer walking into these matches hopping to compete. She was walking in believing she could win. She had already defeated world number 2 Elena Rybakina. She had overcome world number 8 Elena Svitolina. She had beaten Grand Slam champions on grass courts, the very surface many believed would expose her weaknesses. Instead, grass had become the stage where she announced herself to the world. History was no longer chasing Alex Ila, she was creating it. But as incredible as her victory had been, what happened afterward would generate even bigger headlines. Because when Alex entered the post-match press conference, she wasn't interested in talking only about forehands, serves, or match strategy. She was about to address an issue that many players quietly discussed behind closed doors, but very few were willing to say publicly. And one honest answer would leave the entire room speechless. The cheers from centre court were still echoing through the All England club as Alex walked into the media room. The excitement of making history remained fresh. The emotion of carrying an entire nation still rested on her shoulders. Inside the packed press conference, journalists from around the world waited with notebooks open and cameras recording every second. The opening questions were exactly what everyone expected. How did it feel to become the first Filipino seed to win a Wimbledon main draw match? What was it like hearing thousands of Filipino fans chanting her name? Did she feel pressure knowing more than 115 million people were following her journey back home? Alex answered each question with the calm confidence that had become her trademark. She thanked her coaches. She praised her family. She spoke warmly about everything she had learned at the Rafa Nadal Academy and reflected on the unforgettable experience of sharing the court with Venus Williams earlier in the season. "I'm just incredibly grateful," she said once again. "This moment belongs to everyone who believed in me." The reporters nodded. Pens continued moving across notebooks. Everything about the press conference felt perfectly routine. Then one reporter asked a completely different question. It wasn't about her match. It wasn't about Serena Williams. It wasn't even about Wimbledon. Instead, the reporter brought up the growing controversy surrounding prize money and tournament scheduling, an issue that several top players had quietly criticized in recent weeks. The room immediately became more attentive. Few expected Alex Ila to answer. Even fewer expected what came next. She paused for a moment, looked down at the table, collected her thoughts. Then she looked directly toward the audience. "I think there's a disconnect," she said calmly, "between what the tournament says it values and what it actually shows." The room instantly fell silent. "You've seen what Filipino fans have done," Alex continued. "Thousands of them have traveled halfway across the world. They've filled the stands with flags, energy, and passion. They've shown how much this sport means to them." She paused again. But too often, it feels like that support still isn't being fully recognized. Every journalist stopped writing. Every camera focused entirely on Alex. She wasn't raising her voice. She wasn't criticizing anyone personally. She was simply speaking honestly. "I've experienced it before," she continued. "At different tournaments, fans waited for hours just to see the match. Some never even made it inside because the courts were too small." Then came the sentence that changed everything. "I'm tired of pretending that's okay." For a brief moment, emotion crept into her voice. "Our community celebrates every success together. When one Filipino wins, millions feel like they've won too. I'm no longer playing only for myself. I'm playing for every Filipino who's been told their dreams were impossible. For every overseas Filipino worker making sacrifices for their family. For every child back home who believes they can achieve something extraordinary. I think it's time tennis recognizes that. The room froze. Within seconds, the Wimbledon tournament director's face tightened. He slammed his folder onto the table, muttered something under his breath, stood up, and walked straight out of the room without saying a single word. Cameras flashed wildly. Reporters looked at one another in disbelief. The quiet press conference had suddenly become the biggest story of the tournament. Yet Alex Ila never flinched. She remained seated, calm, and composed. She had simply spoken the truth, and the tennis world would spend the following days debating every single word she had said. I'm playing for every overseas Filipino worker who has sacrificed everything to give their families a better life, Alex continued, emotion filling her voice. And I'm playing for every child in the Philippines who dares to dream, no matter how impossible those dreams may seem. Outside the press room, tension was already boiling over. Through the closed doors, raised voices echoed down the hallway. The Wimbledon tournament director could be heard arguing with members of his staff. She can't say that, one voice shouted. She doesn't understand how this works. But the reality was exactly the opposite. Alex Ila understood all too well. She had lived it. She had experienced it tournament after tournament. Earlier in the season at the Australian Open, despite attracting enormous fan interest, she had been scheduled on Court 6, a venue with room for only about 1,500 spectators. Thousands of Filipino supporters arrived hours before the match. The lines stretched through Melbourne Park. Many waited all day. Many never made it inside. Even as the tournament welcomed record-breaking attendance, countless fans hopping to watch Alex were left standing outside. It wasn't an isolated incident. The exact same situation unfolded in Dubai, then again in Indian Wells, then in Rome, and now once more at Wimbledon. Everywhere Alex played, the story repeated itself. Massive crowds, endless queues, a sea of Philippine flags filling every available space. Fans chanting her name with an energy that transformed the atmosphere inside every stadium. Yet somehow, organizers kept assigning her to smaller courts that couldn't accommodate the demand. It has to change, Alex said firmly. Our supporters deserve better, tennis deserves better, and I'm not going to stop speaking about it. The press conference ended only minutes later, but by then, the story had already escaped the room. Within hours, clips of Alex's comments spread across social media. Millions watched the exchange. Millions shared it. What had started as a routine post-match interview suddenly became one of the biggest talking points in international tennis. Filipino fans celebrated with overwhelming pride. Their champion hadn't just won at Wimbledon, she had spoken for them. One post quickly went viral. Alex Ila isn't just representing the Philippines anymore, one fan wrote. She's giving a voice to every Filipino who's ever felt overlooked. Another simply wrote, she's become much bigger than tennis. But not everyone agreed. Criticism arrived almost immediately. Some longtime tennis commentators accused Alex of being disrespectful. Others argued she was still too young and too inexperienced to challenge the traditions of one of the sport's oldest tournaments. A few insisted she should focus only on winning matches instead of discussing scheduling and court assignments. But there was one thing her critics couldn't ignore: the numbers. Before the Australian Open, Alex's press conference attracted more than 171,000 online viewers. That audience surpassed the combined viewership of several of tennis' biggest superstars, including Carlos Alcaraz, Coco Gauff, and Aryna Sabalenka. A 21-year-old player from the Philippines was generating worldwide attention on a scale few had expected. Late that evening, Wimbledon released an official statement. It reaffirmed the tournament's commitment to every player. It promised the best possible experience for fans, but the statement carefully avoided addressing Alex's specific concerns. There was no acknowledgement of the thousands of Filipino supporters who had traveled across the globe. No explanation, no direct response. Then, however, the conversation had grown far beyond Wimbledon itself. Other players quietly began sharing similar experiences. Some publicly supported Alex's comments. Others privately admitted they had encountered the same frustrations throughout their careers. Suddenly, the debate wasn't about one player anymore. It became a conversation about the future of tennis, about who receives the spotlight, about whose supporters are truly valued. And at the center of that discussion sat Alex Ila, calm. Confident, unshaken, she had never intended to challenge the tennis establishment. She hadn't entered that press conference hopping to make headlines. She had simply answered a question honestly. Sometimes, the truth is powerful enough to change the entire conversation. "I'm not playing for myself anymore," she had said. "I'm playing for every Filipino who's ever been told they couldn't." Those words echoed far beyond the walls of the All England club. They became a rallying cry, a symbol of belief. A reminder that one fearless voice can inspire millions. Whether you agreed with Alex or not, one fact had become impossible to deny. She was no longer just one of tennis' brightest young stars. She had become the face of a movement, a leader for an entire nation, and a force the tennis world could no longer afford to ignore. The only question that remained was this: did Alex Ila simply speak her mind, or had she just begun a battle that could change professional tennis forever?